Hello, this is Professor Schultz, and we are getting ready to head into pediatrics. We just ended with newborn, and we learned a lot of new things about how newborns are a little different than adults. And pediatrics just is an extension of that. So as we go into this, remember that first of all, you're taking care of the child, but the one thing that we need to consider is that, like in Chapter 3, it's the childbearing and child rearing family. We are considering families. If you have a 3-year-old, you're working with a parent. You're working with, or a caregiver, someone that is taking care of that child. So that's why it's very important that we discuss through some of the differences between families, different things like that. So if you notice on your syllabus, this is a lot of chapters. It's chapters 3 through 9 in our McKinney book. But don't panic yet, because you've had a lot of this. This is a lot of growth and development type of things. So as we go through this, instead of just thinking about memorizing facts, think about, what does nursing care look like for a 3-year-old, for a 10-year-old, for a 12-year-old, those types of things. So we'll go ahead and head into, I'm going to go ahead and lecture on chapter 3 and 4, and then I believe 5, and then there will be activities in class that address the rest of the chapters. But it is your responsibility to get through these videos before class, and then we'll work on the information in class from the other chapters, but you will need to have read them as well, just to give you a better understanding. Like I said, a lot of it is going to be review. Those of you who have children, it's not going to be totally new for you. Those of you who don't have children, maybe when you're in the store next time, start watching different ages of kids and see the differences in their behaviors. That's a good way to start. So as we enter into this first part, we look at family-centered care. Actually, we're going to go back here real quick. So, chapter 3, it's basically the family. And what's important to remember is that the family is who protects and promotes the child's growth, development, health, and well-being until the child reaches maturity. A healthy family provides the child with love and affection and a sense of belonging, a positive self-esteem, and self-worth. Children need stable families in order to grow into happy, functioning adults. So we look at, what is family-centered care? It's an approach to planning, delivery, evaluation of healthcare that is grounded in a beneficial partnership among your patients, families, health and healthcare professionals. It can be any type of family. There is not just a normal family. This is a group of people that is taking care of that child and helping them to really live the life, just like we said before. So it doesn't look the same as it did 20 or 30 years ago. So we know that family structures in the United States are changing. 65% are still maybe considered married couples. That is on the decline. And then they talked about the single parent families, 22% with mothers, 4% with fathers, and then 4% with no parents. A lot of those students, or those children, may be in foster systems. And then we're seeing lots of changing roles within families. So as we look at the types of families, you're going to see your traditional family. That's that nuclear family, single income, dual income, 2-income families are pretty common. And then your non-traditional families are single parent, blended, adoptive, multi-generational. When I worked in the school, we had a lot of grandparents that were taking care of their children's children. We have same-sex, we have communal, so lots of different types of families. So when we are taking care of a child, we don't just assume it's a normal, or not normal, but it's a nuclear family. Some of us that have come from that environment, that's what we assume is normal, but after 7 years at the school, definitely realized there are all types of families. And the thing that we care the most about as nurses is that the children are being taken care of well. So as you look at characteristics of healthy family, what you're going to see is their cultural values. They have the same cultural value. They're going to communicate well with each other. They're going to be flexible in their roles. It's just healthy. So if you think about a healthy family, they're going to seek resources. They're going to have resources, and they're going to spend time together. They're adaptable to life changes. If you think about those families that maybe weren't as healthy and families that are healthy, there are definitely characteristics within those families that we want to see. So then we go into high-risk families. Well, a lot of times you're going to see that marital conflict and divorce. Many times when I worked at the school, we would have children that would start to act out behaviorally. And when we called parents or caregivers, we'd find out, they were getting a divorce, somebody had left. I worked in a military town at Junction City, and so a lot of times dad had deployed, mom had deployed, somebody had deployed, and they had just lost that person and weren't going to get them back. So every time we'd have a deployment, there would be different things. So any types, sometimes military families can even be in that risk just because they've got this ebb and flow of people. Maybe dad's not always there or mom's not always there. So just understanding that. Our teenage parents, when you're an adolescent when you're a child parenting a child, it puts you at a higher risk. Violence, any of your, parents that tend to be more, aggressive with their children, that is a high risk. Substance abuse, we know that. And then children with special needs. It can be very difficult to take care of children with special needs. So we have to be very aware that could end up as a high-risk family. So on page 37, box 3.1, it kind of talked about the different coping strategies. So we want that healthy versus dysfunctional families. And then just, how do people cope with stress? What does that look like? It forces a change in the balance in the system. Say, mom or dad lost a job, or there's so many different things that can happen within a family. And so I think sometimes we forget, we go straight to something's wrong with the child, and we have to really look at the socioeconomic situation, to all those different things within a child's life that are going to contribute to his or her health. So then we look at coping strategies. We need to assist families to identify strengths and resources. And so those are just the different, that you can find that in your book. And then culture. A culture is that sum of beliefs and values that we transmit from generation to generation. And so every culture looks a little different, not just different cultures like, ethnicity, but this is just cultures like, what it's like to be a Midwesterner versus an Eastern. I mean, even within the United States, there are different cultures of people. And so we have to be very open-minded and understand the culture of the people that are coming in and how they take care of their children. And a lot of them, and watching that ethnocentrism, and I would say this is for us to understand, that we need to understand that our beliefs are not superior than those of other groups. We need to be aware that maybe we have a bias toward that, and that may affect the way that we are taking care of these children and these families. And then the layers of culture. So in your book, I think I don't remember which, anyway, it showed kind of this the iceberg. And it has we have behaviors, but that all comes from that history, values, belief, religion, all these different things that we know that we've been raised with. And then those become our behaviors. And we saw that during the political unrest couple years ago with COVID, I mean, we all came kind of with our own in our things, our history, our values, our beliefs, things that we believe. And it really did influence the behaviors that came out. So parents are the same way. And these are things, children are getting those same things at home. This is what they're being taught. And so sometimes those behaviors will come out at school, and we just have to understand the family a little bit better. So Table 3.1 has the different religious beliefs affecting healthcare. One thing I mean, everybody has kind of a different way of doing things, but the Jehovah's Witness, a lot of times they don't take blood products. So it's very important to know that if you work in an ER and you have a Jehovah's Witness child or anybody, if they can't have blood products, they're going to say no. So even if they're hemorrhaging, that's their belief system. So understanding those different beliefs can really affect healthcare. And really just, like I said, putting our biases aside with that as well. And then as we look at like cultural diversity, we want to provide effective care. So our culture influences, their culture influences health and illness and aging, all those types of things. And I personally like to learn about other cultures. I think it helps me to understand why people do what they do. Why they would react a certain way. Their culture is just different. And so just as a nurse, don't just be narrow-minded within that. Understand why people believe what they believe. And then I would say when you meet parents, really just kind of figuring out that cultural assessment. What's their ethnic affiliation? Now, we don't want to point that out, but if they come from a specific culture or their religion is something that would affect healthcare for them, just understanding that. And sometimes it's just observing. There can be language barriers, child rearing practices, all those different things can affect how we take care of our students or our patients, our pediatric patients. And so I really liked this. It talked about the different parenting styles, and it talks about this in the book. You can have your permissive, authoritative, uninvolved, and authoritarian. Just understanding different parenting styles and also not judging that, because if you have a very permissive parent, they may be letting the kid run around, and just others might be authoritarian, and you're thinking, oh, do I need to turn them into DCF? So just kind of understanding those different parenting styles is important. And then our different parent characteristics. And I just kind of put I liked these different graphs or whatever. I thought it helped kind of point it out. And like I said, it is in the book. And if we're parents, we've experienced different parenting styles, even personally. So just understanding that everybody has a little different way they do things. And then the next thing to go along with that is discipline. There are lots of different ways to deal with misbehavior. And so you're going to have redirectioning, reasoning. A lot of this has to do with their age. When they're a teenager, you're not going to do the same thing as you do when they're 3. So understanding that discipline looks a little bit different for each age group. And finally, as we kind of discuss through there, the nursing process and family. And this slide, I like just what the nursing process. We need to do a family assessment. We need to figure out, talk through things with the family and know who they are before we take care of their child. You want to form a bond. You want to form trust. But every family is going to function just a little bit differently. And then your nursing diagnosis and planning, then intervention and evaluation. And so I just thought this little graph over here, it kind of explained a few things, just what we look at with a student and different things. So that is all I have for this chapter 3. Pretty basic, but just, go through and look at those different cultural type things and how, as a nurse, why this is important in your process.